I wonder what you make of this Wall Street Journal reporting tonight that somebody may have tipped off investigators about there still being more classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. We've played a lot of the montages all throughout the day of the idea of remember this comment about the Fifth Amendment, but I also remember a lot of comments about those who might be leakers, the idea of snitches, the idea of people informing, and the problem with that. What do you think his reaction is going to be to this reporting if that is in fact the case?
Well, it's definitely the case. How did they know? Look, as you stated accurately, when I received the knock on the door from the FBI, from the agents with the warrant, I opened up the door, I greeted them, despite what Donald said in my specific case. And of course, he's parroting it now, which is that they ransacked the place, they destroyed it, that they were unprofessional. It's absolutely not true. The FBI is always professional, they're courteous, and they're respectful. And I'm sure they treated Mar-a-Lago exactly the same. All right. So rest assured, it's once again Donald playing the victim. But as it relates to what's going on here, Donald knows that there are leakers or people who are, I'd like to say, doing the right thing for the right reason. I don't believe so. But whatever it is, every single person that he comes in contact with, and that includes his own children, he has to be wondering, who is it that provided the information to the government for them to be able to obtain this warrant? Because you could bet your bottom dollar, in order to get the warrant, this thing was scrutinized, and significantly.
I also would assume that even if somebody were to tip off, there had to have been some level of corroboration because, unlike, say, the average person, and we know full well that part of the absurdity of the idea of if this can happen to Trump, it can happen to anyone, is that it happens to everyday civilians all of the time. I mean, the idea of an executing of a search warrant happens all of the time. The idea, the novelty is that it happened to a former president here, but on the idea of your own personal experience of being at the receiving end of this federal search warrant, I mean, I wonder, how do you think that Trump is personally reacting to having Mar-a-Lago in particular searched by FBI agents? I mean, he's even suggesting that the FBI may have planted evidence, which is, there's no evidence whatsoever about that.
Yeah, and aren't they supposed to be the party that protects blue? I mean, to make a statement like that, it's so reckless and it's so despicable. I truly don't even want to give it any airtime because it's just wrong on every sense. But one thing for certain, Donald's not so much as concerned that the FBI came to Mar-a-Lago. He's not. What he's concerned about is he knows what information exists in the boxes that were taken. And that's what's concerning him. That coupled with who is it that was providing the information? Because right now he feels trapped. He feels all alone. And he should feel this way because rest assured, whatever the person that provided the feds with the information, they're willing to provide more, and they will continue to do so until ultimately, and one thing when the feds raid, usually what comes after that is an indictment and incarceration, and nobody knows that better than I. And one thing also, when it comes to Donald, I love how he's playing victim, right, for the weaponization of the Justice Department. I have a book that I'm going to be making an announcement tomorrow regarding a new book of mine that's going to be coming out that deals exactly with this issue. This is Donald Trump's weaponization of the Justice Department is now coming back to bite him in his, in his extremely large backside, right? And I constantly put in my Twitter feed, #KarmaBoomerang. He's the one that created this. And what he's doing is he's using exactly what he did to myself and others in order to play the victim on. It's really an amazing way of deflecting.
Well, either you know how to read tea leaves or you're extremely prescient to already have a book ready to go about this very topic, Michael. I got to tell you, it's sort of fascinating to think about in many respects that for some, as you've articulated, there's not the surprise about the playbook that's happening right now. There are remnants and sort of breadcrumbs leading up to how we've seen this play out in the past. I do wonder how it's going to play out politically going forward. Really important to hear your insight. Thank you so much.
So one quick statement here. The problem, I'm not prescient, I'm not Nostradamus. What I am is familiar with the man. All right. And I was with him for over a decade. How Donald Trump acted as the Trump organization is identical to how he acts or acted when he was president in the Oval Office. And it's exactly how he continues to act post his presidency. Nothing with this man changes. He is exactly the same today as he was 10 years ago. And that's why I'm able to provide the insight that I do and so accurately, because the man will never change. Things he did at the Trump org is exactly how he's behaving today.
Can I ask you, Michael? I know we're out of time, but if that's the truth, and I don't have any doubt that it is, why didn't you see it sooner?
Yeah, because I was blinded by the cult of Donald Trump. And it was also not as relevant as it is today. It's one thing when it's the president of the United States making a racist, sexist, misogynistic, xenophobic, homophobic, Islamophobic, anti Semitic comment. It's different when it's the president of a small real estate, a myopically small real estate company in New York. Everybody always knew the kind of person he was, but there was also a lot of good things going on at the Trump organization. And somehow or another, myself and all of my colleagues, we were all in this cult of Donald J. Trump and the Trump organization. When he ultimately left that role and became the president, there were things that I was unable to contend with. And that's really also not what got me out of the cult. What really got me out of the cult was the incarceration.
Michael Cohen, thank you for your honesty. Nice speaking with you.
Good to see you, Laura.